going. Mrs. Ford, will you call the roll for us, please?
Yes. Chairman Wingate,
Here.
Vice Chairman Smith,
Here.
Dr. Highlander,
Here.
Mrs. Hill,
Here.
Mrs. Jones,
Here.
Mrs. Lennon,
Here.
Mr. McClendon,
Here.
Mrs. Robinson,
Here.
Mrs. Thurman,
Here.
Mr. Taylor, Superintendent Dr. Johnson.
Here.
All right. Do we have a motion to approve tonight's agenda?
Move to approve.
Second.
All right.
Dr. Highlander,
Yes.
Mrs. Hill, Mrs. Hill,
I think she's saying yes.
Mrs. Jones,
Yes.
Mrs. Lennon,
Yes.
Mr. McClendon,
Yes.
Mrs. Robinson,
Yes.
Mr. Smith,
Yes.
Mrs. Thurman,
Yes.
Chairman Wingate.
Yes. Okay, so obviously we've had to revisit this, the budget, the proposal. So just quickly, briefly, Mr. Goldberg, could you just obviously we got some documentation from the county regarding the maintenance of effort. Can you just quickly give us a synopsis there of why we're back here tonight?
Yes, sir. So the original proposed budget of $420 million had a decrease in sales tax, but it also had an offsetting increase in property tax growth. The budget that was approved last week, the sales tax decrease remained in that budget from the original, but we cut all of the property tax growth to 0%. And then once the county finance office looked at that, they determined that with the maintenance of effort test that it created a $1.8 million maintenance of effort issue. So the proposal would be to put $1.8 million back into property tax revenue, leave sales tax where it was, and that would eliminate the issue. Of course, then we have to determine what to do on the expense side.
Right. All right. So then what we need to determine is what we're going to do with the 1.8. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
If it's appropriate, Chairman Wingate,
Yes, sir.
I would make a motion that we use that money to reinstate the step increases. If anything has to be cut, I sure hate for it to cut anything to come off the backs of classroom teachers. They're the ones who beat them.
Is that a motion?
That's in form of a motion.
Yeah. Mrs. Hill has seconded that.
Chairman Wingate, if I could comment on the motion.
Okay.
The 1.8 million would not be enough to fully fund a step increase. We would also have to not put $1 million into fund balance, which was included in the budget last week.
Okay.
Okay, I know that's
Go ahead, Mrs. Stern.
I know that Scott is not on here, but Robert's Rules of Orders, I can't remember whether now's the time to make a substitute motion or do we have to wait? Now's the
Scott's
time.
on there. Scott's there.
I'm here.
Okay. Hey, Scott, I'm sorry. I didn't see you down there. Is this the appropriate time to make a substitute motion right here after it's seconded?
Yeah, you could make a substitute motion and to catch everyone up, what that basically means is whatever your motion is, if there's a second, that becomes the main motion instead of Dr. Highlander's motion.
Okay. Okay. I would like
It's
to make the
procedurally, it's basically, I don't want to talk about that. I want to talk about this.
Okay. All right. I want to I'll make a motion that we use the 1.8 million and put it into maintenance, and also the 1 million that you were going to take out of fund balance to put it in maintenance as well. They put $2.8 million into our maintenance budget to cover some of the deferred maintenance costs that we have. Of course, it won't, like I said, it's kind of like throwing a piece of luggage off the Titanic, but at least it's a step in the right direction. So that's my motion. I would like to take the 2.8 million and put it into maintenance.
Okay, do we have?
Because I just don't think this is a time, Joe, this is just not a time for anyone to be getting a raise. I don't care who it is. Teachers don't really work any harder than anybody else. And a lot of people have been wanting to work hard, but hadn't been able to. And so they've lost money that they will never regain. And so far, the teachers haven't lost anything. And so I just think this is very tone deaf to the public. And I just don't think it's the way that we need to go. I don't think we should be talking about a raise. Like I said 3 weeks ago when we talked about this, it's not a time to be talking about a raise for anyone for any reason at this time. I know that I don't know how many people were laid off last week, but it's been tremendous, the amount of people who have lost their jobs. And some people, even when they can go back to work, don't have a job to go back to.
94 million.
Okay, well, like I
in the
say,
state of Tennessee.
this is not the time. The teachers haven't lost one penny. Matter of fact, they got a $555 bonus. They got a $1,200 bonus and a 2.5% increase last year. So it's not like we're doing anything on the backs of teachers. I'm here to represent the taxpayers, and I cannot do this to the taxpayers. I cannot do it in good conscience.
Do we have a second to that motion? Okay, so that motion fails. And we are back to our original motion.
Can we call for the vote?
No, not yet. Mr. Chairman, I would like, this is Joe Smith. I would like to make a motion that we take that maintenance of effort dollars and put it into our surplus fund. Listen, 94 million people in the state of Tennessee lost their job last week. Now, you know, it's just hard for me to, I agree with Ms. Thurman on one level. It's hard for me to understand. And I don't think anybody on our board has advocated for teachers more than Joe Smith. I know all of us have at one time or another, but I really have. But I don't think it's right to be talking about at this point a raise when everybody's or so many people are losing their job. And I just think the optics of this, you know, you work for the government, so you're going to get a raise while people in the private sector are getting laid off left and right. My other concern is, you know, in retrospect, I almost wish that 10 days ago that we had approved our original budget. And then if we had to make cuts, we could have made cuts, but we didn't do that because we hoped to get some guidance from the county commission, which we didn't get. That's frustrating. I'm also a little bit frustrated with our legislators because it looks to me like they should have done something with this maintenance of effort law in this climate. And nobody knows what our revenue is going to be. Nobody knows, but it's just hard for me to believe it's going to hit that $80 million mark. And I'm just afraid we're going to be right back here in 2 or 3 months having to make major cuts. So I just think the prudent thing to do would be to put that money in our sustaining fund and so that we don't have to come back 3 or 4 months now and even make deeper cuts. So my motion is to take that 1.8 million from the maintenance of effort that we have to add back in as revenue and simply put those funds into our sustaining fund. And then if revenues come in, like we hope they will, but nobody knows, then the first thing we ought to look at is reinstating those step increases. But so that's my motion, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, I will second that motion, but I don't think that we need to look at that. That's the first thing we do, to look at a step raise. I think, like I say, I think that we've taken care of the teachers quite well in the past year, but I will second that motion to go ahead and put it in both the 1.8 million into fund balance.
Mr. Chairman,
Okay. Yes,
just
sir.
so we're clear, Dr. Haller's motion is already on the table, so or on the floor rather. So if you want to consider Mr. Smith's motion, that would need to be viewed as a substitute motion in the place of Dr. Highlander's motion.
Okay. So
Was that your intent, Mr. Smith?
That's my intent.
all right, so we got a motion by Mr. Smith, a second by Mrs. Thurman, and I see Mrs. Robinson's hand up. So go ahead.
Sure. You know, I certainly understand where Mr. Smith is coming from on this. I mean, we're at a hard road to cross, and we've had more in-depth conversation around this budget than what we've had over the last few years, even though the last few years we've had incredibly in-depth conversations about the budget. You just kind of wonder, like, what's going to happen every year at this point. We just get lots of surprises. But, you know, whenever I voted last Thursday, I voted for, if there became more money available, then my next conversation around this budget would be putting it towards step increases. And I'm not going to go back on my word on that. And I know that several others on this board said the same thing. And I think that there are, 5,000 teachers out there who heard us say those things, and who saw us on these Zoom calls say the same thing. And so for me, I think that if in July it turns out that there's a larger deficit for our county, we are going to be back here discussing cuts, but we're going to be doing that no matter what. And I think that right now we need to stay true to our word of what we made last Thursday. And in July, if we have to make more cuts, perhaps we do end up making the step increase cut, but we're going to be cutting a lot of other things too. And that's going to happen, whether there's a deficit that's going to happen if there's a deficit. And right now I can't predict that. And so, I just think that it's important that we stick to the narrative that we had on Thursday, and, we remind our employees of how important they are to us, and also that it's important that we, say what we were going to do, or I'm sorry, that we do what we said we were going to do.
I don't know who was next there. Mr. McClendon, I'll go with you, and then Mrs. Thurman.
Since we found out about this on Friday, I've had a range of emotions, from being excited and glad that our budget issue from the night prior was resolved, to kind of being more cautious about moving forward. I echo kind of what Joe Smith says about direction from the county and the county finance team. Just doing some research today, we're the only county, major county out of the 5 major counties that are not projecting any kind of budget shortfall or budget cuts to their revenue. Nashville's projecting $470 million, Knoxville 7 to 18 million, Memphis 10 million, Rutherford County 4.5 million. But for some reason, the county finance team is saying we're keeping our revenues projected at 80 million. And so it baffles me why they're doing that and not giving county government departments more direction and us more direction. And another thing about this is then kind of what Tiffany said. We go back to this, we voted to free step increases. We could vote to reinstate them tonight, but then July comes, we could be right back here having the same conversation about cutting them again. I don't know how that makes teachers feel about getting it taken away, giving it to them, taken away again. It's really kind of for me, it's become my head saying one thing, my heart saying another. But really, one thing that gets me is I would rather be proactive rather than reactive in this situation. So I think, putting the money in fund balance and letting it go towards teacher step increases, if revenue hits where our county says they think they're going to hit, is something that still gets teachers step increases. If the revenue hits, and if it doesn't, we were going to be right here back having conversations anyway. So I think it's more of that proactive over reactive approach that I would like us to see.
Mrs. Thurman.
Yes. Well, last Thursday, I did not say that was going to be my first priority. I never said that. Maybe some of the rest of you did, but I certainly never did, because I was concerned then about our maintenance issues that like I say, we spent $500,000 of taxpayer money for somebody to come here and travel all over the town and have meetings everywhere. numerous times telling us how bad our schools buildings were, and we still haven't addressed it. Not even $1 million worth have we addressed it. So, so that was not my deal. I didn't say that. And I also don't want to earmark it and put it in fund balance for a step increase if we get more money. Like I say, I just do not understand why, if everybody thinks that teachers are the only people that work hard. There are a lot of people in this town that are really hurting. And maybe some of you haven't missed a paycheck. I don't know. I will never make up almost 2 months of my work. I mean, it looks like I'm going to make it up in about 4 or 5 days here coming up, but I will never be able to recoup the money I've lost. And there's a lot of people in the same situation that I'm in. I think this is completely tone deaf. And the teachers, if they don't see that, then some of them need to have a checkup as well. I know that there's some principals who have spoken out and told their teachers, you know, hey, listen, at least we have a job. At least we've been paid. We haven't missed a payday. And we should be thankful for what we have. And yes, we have taken care of our teachers. We've paid them. We've paid we've paid our bus drivers. We've paid our cafeteria workers. We paid our janitors and things. So we have been more than fair. We have been more than fair to government employees than we have the people out who are having to shuffle around and, you know, and find babysitters for their kids, the essential employees who had to work. And so if there are a lot of people having to shuffle things around, plus do a lot of the homeschooling themselves. And so I'm sorry, but I just don't see why that this has to be our top priority. I'm here to represent the taxpayers, and that's who I'm going to represent. And this is not right. And but like I say, if we're just going to put it in fund balance, earmark it to give it to the teachers later, no. We need to earmark it and leave it there. And if we need it, we can go get it. And if we don't, I want it put toward maintenance.
Mrs. Hill.
Thank you, Joe. Working with government salaries is certainly something that's new to me, coming from the private sector. But when I have done the research on step increases, I see that this is a normal process within the career of an educator. And I see that this is a commitment that we as a board made to our teachers last year at the beginning of fiscal year 20. They negotiated with the collaborative conferencing team in good faith. And furthermore, what our teachers have done since we've moved to remote learning has been nothing short of remarkable. I think Rhonda's points about, and Joe Smith's as well, about how people have lost paychecks and jobs. I mean, if anything, that to me makes me feel more committed to doing what we said that we would do for teachers, because they have been impacted potentially in their families, though thankfully for them, not in their own jobs, though most definitely this group of our community have had to really turn the way they do what they do upside down. And I appreciate it a lot. You know, Tucker, your point about if we put this in a savings account and later, you know, is that better? I think we have almost 6,000 staff that are looking to us to show that within our strategic plan, great teachers and leaders matter to us. And the money is here. I don't believe in punitive cuts to pay, which, you know, because somebody in the private sector has faced a reduction, doesn't mean that we, with our teachers, need to cut their pay before it's necessary. I have this email from our county budget guy up on my screen, and he says, no one knows, this is from Friday, and today is Monday at 5, and this came Friday at 12:57 was sent to Dr. Johnson and the rest of the team. No one knows when the local economy will rebound, and we certainly don't want to overreact in our budgets by reducing revenues too much or too soon. Since a budget is a working document that can be adjusted or amended at any time, once the economic landscape is clearer, I would respectfully request that you increase your local revenues to next year's budget to eliminate this maintenance of effort issue. Then this coming fall or winter, you could adjust your budget up or down depending on the economic outcome. You know, that's from Albert Kaiser he's the administrator of finance for the county. He's very respected. I have a great deal of respect for Mayor Coppinger. And consequently, I think we need to do what we said we were going to do. And so that's why I support this motion. And I call for the question.
Dr. Highlander.
Tucker, I don't always agree 100% with you, but the head and the heart thing hit home with me. My heart is definitely with the teachers, 100%. My head, though, is spinning on the fact that what Joe and Rhonda said, that we do have 94 million people out of work in the state, and the pandemic.
I think that's in the country, Coach.
And so did I not say something right?
No, I think it's 94 million in the country. I think we're about 7 million in the state of Tennessee.
I meant country. Yeah, I meant to say country. I meant to say country, not state.
That's right.
Thank you. Thank you for straightening that out. I guess I'm still thinking with my heart instead of my head. I see Rhonda and Joe's point. If we put it in the fund balance, we have it there, then we can choose what is most needful at that time in the near future. So I can see the rationale.
Coach, you're muted. All right, Mrs. Lennon.
I just would like to echo too. I think that it's we keep hearing that our teachers don't need a raise. We're not giving them a raise. We're just holding true to what we say that we're doing for them. And I think it's very important that we go back to what we said that we're going to do for our teachers, because that's the backbone of our school system is our teachers and what they do in the classroom every single day. And they're continuing to do it even during this pandemic. And for us to say that they don't, that they don't deserve a raise or that they don't need a raise, I don't really get that, because I think it's very important that we have a plan in place. We've stuck to that plan. We have the step increases, and it's not that we're not going over and beyond. Some of the step increases don't even amount to more than $50. It's depending on where you are on that ladder. But to take that away at this point in time, after they've worked so diligently to get to the point through the bargaining through PECA, I think that we're going backwards. Let's move forward. Let's continue this trajectory and move forward with our teachers so that we can have great leaders and teachers in our classrooms for our kids. As we go through this pandemic, as we go through, and we don't know what's gonna happen in the fall, and as we move forward, I think that we owe it to everybody to stay true to what we said that we were going to do with our teachers and leaders and move forward with these step raises. I just think it's very, very important. Thank you.
Mrs. Thurman. I think you're muted still, Rhonda.
Okay. I have to disagree with just a whole lot of that. First of all, the backbone of this school system, without the students and without the taxpayers, the teachers don't have a job. So to me, the students are the backbone of this school system. Without them, the teachers are totally unnecessary. So the taxpayers are paying their salary, and they didn't sign up. You say the teachers, they didn't sign up for us, not giving them a step increase. Well, I tell you what, I know one parent that has 3 children who didn't miss a day's work during this whole thing, and she's having to homeschool 3 kids when she gets home from her full-time job. She didn't sign up for that either. And now to think about that, she's going to have to give the teachers a raise, and only in government, when you don't get a raise, so they call it a pay cut. We're not giving them a pay cut. They're just not getting a raise. There's a huge difference. Government always does that. They make this ridiculous budget, and then when you cut something out of it, they say you've cut their budget or you cut someone's pay. No, you're just cutting the amount of increase. Nobody is cutting a teacher's pay. I hate that kind of doublespeak. It just really bothers me. So, like I say, the teachers didn't know when the year started. We didn't know when the year started. Nobody knew when this year started what it was going to be. And I'm sorry, but if teachers can't see that they have not missed a dime. And there's a lot of people out there, the students that they serve, whose parents do not even have a job. And a lot of those parents that live over there by some of the people in our central office don't even have a home, don't even have a car, don't even have any toys. And we're worried about a teacher missing $50 a year. We ought to be ashamed of ourselves. We ought to dadgum be ashamed of ourselves is what we ought to be.
Before we call for the vote, I just want to say a couple of things. I've thought a whole lot about this. Obviously, I'm a teacher. I'm a career educator, and I think part of what's frustrating for me, and what's been frustrating through this whole virus shutdown across the country, is just really lack of solid information. And it's probably the first time in my life that I felt like I've had a hard time going anywhere to get real solid information, no matter what the source. It always seems that within 3 or 4 minutes of the conversation about the virus, we shift to the president or politics or something other than whether it's he's doing a great job or a bad job, or this could have been avoided, or this anyway. It's just been frustrating for me to really feel like I can't go many places and get good information. I think one of the things too that's frustrating for me is through this budget season is really, and we've all done it, I'm including myself, we spent a lot of time talking about things that we just don't have the answers to, and not because we don't have common sense or are intelligent folks. We just don't have the data or the information yet to make the kind of information or the kind of decisions that we would typically be making in this process. And so that's been frustrating for me. I will say, I think it's obvious to anybody that's been paying attention that this board has made teacher pay a priority over the last couple of years. I mean, if you just go and look at the increases that have taken place just in the last 4 years, those 4 are higher than I think the previous 7 or 8 as I looked at those pay increases, whether it be through percentage increases or bonuses or what have you. And so this board does value teachers. I know that. I think for me, where I've struggled is, okay, in my mind, what is the wise thing to do? And with all the uncertainty, even with this latest revelation of, hey, the budget that we passed on to the county last week did not meet, for whatever reason, didn't meet the maintenance of effort standard. What I've come back to is, okay, so now there is an amount of money there, and a small amount of money, comparatively speaking, when you talk about our whole budget. And what's the wise thing to do? And to me, not knowing where we're going to be in 2 months, I just think we got to give the county a budget that meets the criteria that we've got to meet, which is the maintenance of effort. And then we got to wait to see where we stand 2 months from now. And I'm all for if revenues are there and are available, I have no problem with a step increase for teachers. I don't have a problem with that. My problem is we're all speculating. Listen, I've heard Mr. Goldberg. We've listened to you for a couple months talk about those things, and I have no doubt talked about this. You're doing a fantastic job. I think I greatly appreciate the effort and energy and time you put into it. Listening to what might get from the county. I don't think anybody really has a good handle on that, and I'm not. I just that this is something unlike we've ever seen, and so for me, I just think the wise thing is we've been in. We decided last week we were going to stay in a state of a holding pattern, and nobody's gone backwards. We've been able to keep folks employed, and they've been able to make what they've been making. And we said that, hey, look, we're going to have to wait and see where we are here. And many folks did say last week, hey, we get to that point where the picture becomes clear, and we've got some revenue here that we'd like to revisit the teachers. And so I don't have an issue with that. But I think for us is we've just got to give the county a budget, again, that meets the criteria that it's supposed to meet. And then we're going to just have to see where this thing shakes out in a couple months. And I have no doubt we're going to be revisiting this. No doubt. And who knows what that's going to look like. I think everybody's going to be revisiting it, not just the Department of Education. So with that said, so the motion on the table and seconded, the vote here is for, remind me again, Mr. Smith, we're going to give them a.
It's Mr. Smith's substitute motion.
Yes.
To allocate these funds to the fund balance with the intention of them going toward the step increases if the revenues come in. Did I understand that correctly, Ms. Ford and Mr. Smith?
I'm going to withdraw my second.
That wasn't what I got.
That wasn't my motion.
I'm sorry.
That wasn't my motion, Scott.
Okay, I'm sorry.
My motion was to take that 1.8 maintenance of effort funds and put it into our fund balance.
Okay.
And when revenues come in, we can revisit the step increase for teachers, and that's the motion. Now let me just add this one little piece, and I'm sorry, but for some reason I got hung up there, and I had to reboot, so I missed most of the conversation. But I just want to add this little piece, Mr. Chairman. Since last Thursday, when we voted to freeze the step increases, I've had a lot of calls and emails from teacher friends, principals, and our teachers are smart people. They are, and they understand the economic environment that we face as well. And I got to tell you, I don't know about you guys, but I had very few teachers complain about us making that choice to have this temporary freeze. So I just wanted to share that. I don't know what kind of calls you guys have had, but
Joe, if your motion was to put the money into fund balance and us revisit it later, I'll stop there, but not revisit it just for a teacher raise. We don't know what it's going to be. We may have to. If it's just to put it in fund balance, I'll keep my second there. But if it's to revisit it strictly, just if we get the money, that's what we're going to do with it. I'm not good with that. I'm not going to.
No, that was my motion, was to take that money and put it into our fund balance.
Okay,
that is the motion.
Yeah,
Okay.
Mr. Thurman, I misunderstood what Joe said. I heard him talk about the raises later, but that was not a stipulation to the motion.
Okay.
So Ms. Ford's got the motion, and there we go.
Okay. All right, Mrs. Ford, unless we've got any other comment, I think we're ready. Oh,
Dr. Highlander.
hang on a second. Dr. Johnson, were you trying to jump in?
I just want to echo the sentiment around the revisiting of numbers. Every year the budget is amended. It's a part of the process in a budget and being a fluid document. Fortunately, in our county, we've been under budget and been able to go back and revisit the budget to determine how we're going to appropriate additional revenue that we have. This year is a completely different year. Frankly speaking, when the state gets back, in Nashville, when the state legislature gets back, there's uncertainties that exist around, even the state allocation and appropriation. So I think regardless of what transpires, we completely expect to have to revisit the budget throughout this process, and it being a fluid conversation. I do want to say this, and I know you all have said this. I just want to re-echo it in the midst of Teacher Appreciation Week. I agree that our parents and our guardians, we were joking before it came on, grandparents, great-grandparents, friends, aunts, uncles, everybody stepped up in this season to really support learning that's taking place. But I'll tell you, just personally speaking, the value of a teacher from my seat has increased, and that's not just because I'm a superintendent. That's because I got an 8-year-old that I wish I could get back to his teacher in a hurry, even if it had to be socially distanced. And so the value of a teacher and the knowledge that they impart upon our children, I struggle with us. Regardless of what happened with the step increase, it's not about the step increase, but I want to be clear that for me personally, I think for everybody I've heard that you cannot put a dollar figure on what a teacher does and what a teacher has done. And so I think that's important. The other thing I want to speak to just really briefly is around the conversation about deferred maintenance. And so it's a conversational narrative that's ongoing. You all know we have a $900 million challenge in front of us, but I want to applaud the board. Over the last couple, 3 years, we've put a significant amount of money in deferred maintenance, a significant amount of money in deferred maintenance, well and above what's been done in a long time. And there's a lot of there are many operational things that we haven't done because we've invested in buildings. And so I think that's also just week before last, $2 more million we invested in buildings, out of our out of dollars that could be appropriated in a different type of way. And so having said all that, I just want to be clear that, and I think I heard it, but I want to make sure, because I also heard some comments that were a little bit different, like teachers, the work that teachers do in the trenches, and so many on the phone are and have spoke to. The reason why it's been a focus, and you're exactly right. I think Chairman Wingate said this last year. We put $16.2 million into our teachers between bonuses and step increases and teacher raises, and I think it's the right thing to be doing for our teachers. And so just know that now we're in a dynamic budgeting climate with complete uncertainty about what the tomorrow holds from a revenue standpoint. And we're just trying to operate on the best information that we have in the presentation of a budget. And that's where we were, a couple of weeks ago when we presented the budget, to you all collectively as a body. And was very clear then that if revenues came in below, that we were going to have to come back and have hard conversations about what's there. Let me say this. There are a few things that stand. And now be quiet after this. There are a few things that stand. We are making sacrifices within our budget amidst, what happens with this additional 1.8 million. And so y'all know we still have cut $1.2 million already away with certain things. So just want to elevate those comments as we go forward.
Dr. Highlander. Hey, you're muted, Coach.
I hit unmute. Is it working now?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. This is Teacher Appreciation Week, and my heart goes out. We all appreciate teachers. Every single one of us, as several of you have said, appreciate teachers. I wish I could go out and give candy to man like I normally do in all my 14 schools. Put some in their box and say thank you. And my heart is with the step increases. Let me just say this. If we vote to put it in the fund balance, we need to make absolutely sure it doesn't go to add personnel. We've already had a lot of personnel above what the BP pays for. And we need to be very, very, very cautious and careful if we put in there. And Dr. Johnson and Brent, correct me if I'm wrong, this board will have to approve any pull out of the fund balance. Is that correct?
Yeah, we would, Dr. Highlander, we wouldn't do that. We'd bring you anything, we're proposing from that standpoint.
I'm just saying, as much as I do see wisdom with so many people out of work, and my heart is, I'm torn right down the middle. I am torn. But I do see the wisdom in putting it in and adding it later if we have the funds available. So I'm ready. Thank you. That's all I need to say.
Okay, Mrs. Ford.
Okay, just to be clear, we're voting on the motion to take $1.8 million and put it into fund balance.
Correct.
Everybody clear on that's what we're voting on. Dr. Highlander?
Yes.
Mrs. Hill?
No, this is premature.
Mrs. Jones?
Yes.
Mrs. Lennon?
No.
Mr. McClendon?
Yes.
Mrs. Robinson?
No.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mrs. Thurman?
Yes.
Chairman Wingate?
Yes.
6-3. Motion passes.
Okay. Well, I'd like to say that we're done with that, but my guess is we won't be. So listen, thank all of you all for doing this on short notice, and there'll be something for the county to be looking at tomorrow. But thank you again for doing that, and greatly appreciate all of you. These are not easy times for any of us, and I don't know. I mean, I know there are folks obviously been on the board a whole lot longer than I have, but I'll tell you what, this last 4 years has been a ride. So again, thank you all so much. Anybody got any announcements or anything that they want to make before we log off?
I will quickly announce one thing. I think I saw Jill here. We had it was announced today. We had 5 schools that were designated received STEM designation, and that's the most of any district in the state of Tennessee. Of 22 schools across the state that were designated, 5 of them were right here in Hamilton County. So very, very proud of those schools and the work that they've done.
Oh, it's awesome. It's awesome.
Any update about graduations for anybody? I know none in my district. Anybody else?
No,
no, ma'am. We again have been pretty clear. We won't make a decision about the June graduation until probably the end of this month. And if we push it, we would push it, again to those July dates that we advertised.
Okay. What about childcare? What I get most calls about?
Yeah, we're working on that. We've got 25 sites that we're about ready to advertise. We're just trying to work through the logistics of how do we get families in and out, and there might be some changes to some of the processes that we currently have.
We could go to Lowe's. We could go to Lowe's and let a bus pick them up. They don't seem to have a problem. Home Depot, Lowe's. We could just tell our parents to take the kids and drop them off there, and we'll haul them off to school.
I did notice that this weekend.
Yeah.
But we just got to work through some details of how to get people in and out, and also payment and stuff like that.
Mr. Chairman, Dr. Johnson, what about TSSAA? I've had a couple of coaches call and want to know when they're going to be able to get their kids back in the weight room, that kind of thing. Have we heard any news about that?
Dr. Johnson, you want me to take that, or you want
go ahead, Justin. Go ahead.
So, Mr. Smith, we sent out an email today to athletic directors that we're still suspending stuff through the end of this month. What TSSAA said is basically suspended through the end of the school year, which was our calendar year, and kind of similar to childcare. We'll have some more direction there as we work through it. But right now, what the ADs have is that through the end of May, and then June 1st, we'll provide some more direction.
Okay, thank you.
Dr. Highlander.
Tomorrow morning, 9 o'clock, is that correct?
Yes, the budget presentation to the county.
Right. So we all need to be in on that, right?
Did all have the link?
Do we have the invitations yet?
Yes, sent it to you last week. If you need me to send it again, let me know.
Please do, Sherry.
Please do.
Okay. I'll resend it. No problem.
All right. Anything else? All right. Meeting adjourned. Thank you all.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.